understand that there is also the formal justice system and the informal justice system. The formal justice system includes what many of us come to see. First is the law enforcement agency or the policing agencies. The agencies whose role is there to enforce the law. And if for any reason you violate any law of the land, they will apprehend you. And the agency that will apprehend you depends on what type of the violation you have committed or what particular law you have committed. Now you get to be apprehended, and once you've been apprehended, then you move to the next sector. And then let me talk about this national issue of the law enforcement. So for example, if you were caught dealing or trafficking in hard drugs, illicit substances in terms of drugs, you may have what is called NDLEA, which is National Drug Law Enforcement Agency officials apprehend you. If it is something to do with trafficking of related offenses, you'll have the Road Safety Corps dealing with you. And just the same thing if it's something broadly in terms of internal security matters, general issue about general violations of law within the country, you have the police. And it's important to state that the police have a very wide range of offenses that they are the ones that deal with. If it's something to do with goods, you may be confronted with the custom and excise officials. If it is something to do with issue around lawful movement of persons across borders, it may be the immigration officers. So you can understand that all of these agencies have different rules depending on their specific area of focus. Now, as I said, at the very first time, the law enforcement agencies are the ones who now look at how persons have reacted in terms of violating anything. They will arrest, and then of course, having arrested you, then they will take you to the next phase. They will investigate the matter and believe that they will have enough ground to proceed with that particular case. Then they would obviously move on with the case. But that brings us to the second level. So you have the first level, which I've talked about, which is the level around policing, around the issue of law enforcement, to then the second level, which is about prosecution. There are some agencies that play dual role, whereby both they have the investigating unit and they also have the prosecution unit. So organizations such as, of course, even the EFCC, which is the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and all the rest of them. But beyond these agencies that sometimes play investigative role as well as prosecutory role, broadly speaking, the Ministry of Justice, both at the federal and the state level, actually also play that role, the prosecution. And basically what the prosecution level does is to be able to say, okay, I've taken all the information that I've gotten from the policing agency and I've seen the charge that they are, and trying to pursue in regards to this particular matter. And I think that they have enough grounds to charge this particular person for the offenses they want to charge, going by the evidence they have, going by what the law says. So that's basically what that determination needs to be. And then from that prosecution, it's then the prosecution that now takes the matter to court. So when you come to the third level, which is the court, you have some kind of a tripartite process whereby the prosecution brings the matter on behalf of the states, prosecuting this particular person who they are now again have charged for that particular violation. But this person that they have charged for that particular violation also have the right to have their own lawyer. And that is what we call the defense. So the defense come in, and defense can come in through their private lawyers. It can come in through lawyers that are assigned to them by the Legal Aid Council of Nigeria. The Legal Aid Council of Nigeria has the power to take on cases of those who are indigent, who can't afford, those cases and all that, and to pay a lawyer. So they are there to provide that. So they can either do it by using lawyers of the legal aid council or other lawyers who have signed on to provide that service on that as pro bono, which is free of charge. Now, at the court stage, what then happens is that these two elements, both the prosecution and the defense, bring the matter. And the court, the judiciary, looking at what has been the charge before them, looking at the evidence before them, looking at the voice of what the witnesses are saying, and then they are able to now say, yes, indeed, this person has been found to be guilty of the offense that's been charged or not. And on the basis of that conviction or no conviction, they can now go a sentence on that matter. So again, the judiciary, the third. Remember, the first, you have the law enforcement, the policing agencies. The second, the prosecution. The third, the judiciary. But as I said, when you're looking at the judiciary, you also have other players. Not just the prosecution taking the matter, there is also the defense coming in. And then, of course, at the end of the day, a sentence is given. If that sentence that is given at that point is a sentence that, says you will be able to serve this sentence either in custody or not in custody, it needs in terms of the supervision of that sentence, implementation of that sentence, in terms of what terms that the court has given, it actually falls within the next level, which I call the fourth level, and that's the correctional sentence. The correctional sentence will then therefore look at how they will supervise those that have been sentenced to custody, that is by the court, or those that have been sentenced to non-custodial measures, also by them. So their own job is only to carry out what the court has said that they should. So if you are given 2 years imprisonment, 3 years imprisonment, it is their time to make sure that every day of that as it counts, that they are able to supervise you and ensure that you implement, you carry out those sentences as have been prescribed by court. And then it is that correctional center service will also be at the ones that have the role to do what is called computation of sentence. So, for example, what does 12 years imprisonment actually mean in reality? Because when they do the computation, there are some parts of that sentence that may go into what they call remission. So 12 years, 12 months, when you may not necessarily mean 12 calendar months, but it is this more of a technical aspect, which the correctional service deals with. And then, of course, you are then released. Sometimes you will have a situation where the person has served some time in custody and then released to serve the rest of the time in the community through the non-custodial. Sometimes you may have a situation where the person has completely finished serving their sentence in custody, but because they feel that this person also requires more support in the community, there is still additional things done in the community for such. So this is the formal system as we know it. The informal system also operates because there are a lot of times when people commit offenses, what happens is that they don't even come to the formal system, and it's settled by the chiefs, the kings, the community elders, and all the rest of it. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you find out that even whilst the matter is already in the formal sector, that sometimes they can also be taken out, from that formal sector and go to the informal sector and get settled. So that is the whole spectrum. So you are seeing a broad range. And if I talk about policing, like which I spoke about the first stage, it's not just 1 or 2 agencies. In Nigeria, there are close to about 18 institutions or more that have the power to arrest and detain at that very first level. So you are talking about multiplicity of agencies. Okay? Now, if you also come to the issue of prosecution, as I talked about the second level, you find that also there are also, not just one agency that can also prosecute, in the sense that you have people in the Ministry of Justice, both at the state and the federal. But there's some of these also agencies that you find them at in the law enforcement level, which is number 1, also having prosecutory roles. You come to the judiciary again, you find also there are different types of structures. We also have the Sharia court, the customary court, and all the rest of them. Okay, you have the magistrate courts, then you have the high courts, and then in terms of appeal, you have the appeal court. Then of course you have the highest level, which is the Supreme Court. Again, we are seeing different. Now, if you look at it, and of course I have talked about the correctional service, where you had the custodian and the non-custodian, and very recently, because the correctional service had been now put in the concurrent legislative list, what that means is that as time goes on now, we begin to see correctional centers that are administered at the state, as well as perhaps what would be happening at the federal, depending on what modality have been taken or will be taken in regards to the implementation of that, transfer of the correctional service from exclusive legislative list to concurrent legislative list. So what this means is that there are so many institutions. So somebody comes in and says, so complicated. Sometimes you hear people say that. Okay? So we need to be able to understand that the complexity of the Nigerian justice system is there, and because of that complex web, I think I would prefer to call it the web, and also because of the fact that it's a system. If there's any problem anywhere along this line, it brings up a problem that can also impact the general.